What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another video on The Right Mindset. Today's lesson is going to go over Act 2, Section 4. This section is known as The Protagonist Explores the New World, Ascending a Rise to the Conflict. Now, this is the beginning of Act 2 and the fourth section of your story, or a story in general. The three plot points in Section 4 are plot point 10, 11, and 12. This is ultimately the journey to the Midpoint Conflict, exploring the new world through the protagonists as they live in it, and we get to see their capability of being utilized. And as always, let's develop the right mindset and get into the lesson today, everyone. Woohoo! I love doing these videos for you. All right. So for anyone who's been following the series, or maybe this is your first time watching this particular video series, this playlist of the 27 plot points. This was a outline style created by Kate O'Keefe. You could find her link in the description below. Let's get on to it. Now, the first thing we have to do is realize that today's lesson is indeed Act 2, Section 4. The protagonist explores the new world, ascending rise to conflict, which means we need to recap a little of this Act 2, Section 4, and get your brain thinking and understanding, oh, there's something about this that you need to know. So let's do it. Everything about this section will add to who the character is, what we get to see and of them and how they are capable through action. Okay, so we can challenge them when we do get to Section 4, the midpoint conflict. Let me clarify that. Okay, so this section, we're going to see how they are capable. We're going to explore and witness how they are capable of everything that you set up in Act 1. The entirety of Act 1 was about saying, this is who the character is. These are the things they can do. It's creating the promises of what we're, obviously if they say there's magic in the world. Well, in Act 2, we get to see the magic working. We get to see them utilizing magic to get through things, to figure out stuff. However, we're not seeing them being pushed to their limits yet. That happens at the midpoint. Right now, Section 4 was more or less, we get to play with the characters and their capability, their skills, their intelligence, their interests. We get to learn a little bit about them, more so than the setup of Act 1. Now we're actually getting to play with the knowledge we set up in Act 1 and challenge it a little bit to see how they react. And are they true to what we set up in Act 1? Basically, if they're a nice person in Act 1 and they're being and they're level-headed and we're saying that they're smart, well, in Act 2, Section 4, as we're rising to the conflict, we want to make sure that when things arise, they are indeed level-headed, they are indeed smart, they are indeed brave. Whatever the case is that you set up in Act 1, this Act 2, Section 4, is designated to watching all that we set up play out and pushing back on it to challenge them to see if A, they are indeed capable of it, or B, what they know is enough for them to be here in the new world, but not necessarily enough for them to continue forward past the midpoint. We're setting that up, going, these are their limits. We're challenging them to their limits, but not pushing them beyond their limits. So they most likely Act 2, Section 4, we're going to see them succeeding. We're going to see them accomplishing things. We're going to see them, even though they have some pushback and they might, fail here and there, that failure is a learned lesson that, helps them grow, whatever the case may be. All right. So what is the purpose of Act 2, Section 4? The protagonist explores the new world, ascending race. Well, it's right there in a sense. This is where the protagonist explores the new world, not only what they are discovering in this new world that's different from what they're used to, but we're seeing how they are reactive to that new world and how it influences them. By the way, new world doesn't mean that, like, someone from America flies to Europe and goes to England. That's not what it really means. New world means that whatever changed their ordinary world in Act One through the inciting incident, that inciting incident caused a catapult of change for your protagonist, and that change that they're dealing with is the new world. So in a romance novel, it would probably be when they meet the love interest. So the old world, the ordinary world, is before the love interest. The new world is getting to know the love interest, okay, or pursuing the love interest. Right? In Hitch, for example, they go on a few dates, but the dates fail, but he still comes back from it. So again, we're showing how he's capable. He's helping other people succeed with his knowledge in Hitch. Spoilers. However, we're challenging his expertise as a hookup artist or a dating consultant, and we're watching him fail miserably, but with dignity, and he's finding ways to get around it and push forward and continue getting to know this the love interest. All right, so, but again, what is the purpose of Act 2, Section 4? If we know that all three sections of Act 1 are there to set up the world of the story, this is what your world is, the themes, rules, and some information to pull your reader into the story. That's all Act 1 is, okay? Act 1 should also set up who your characters are and what they are capable of. So in Section 4, we can see what they are capable of in action, just like I explained earlier, okay? That was just simplifying it. Act 2 in general is pushback on the established ordinary world. Thus, Act 2, all of Act 2 is considered conflict. It's all pushback and challenge. Act 1 is set up. Act 2, all of it, is a conflict of challenging everything we established in Act 1, okay? Or in some way or another, or challenging the characters, etc., etc. And because Act 2 is broken up into Section 4, 5, and 6, Section 4 has a very specific purpose, all right? That purpose for Section 4 is learning to exist in the new world with the new information. And of course, if you need to know before you even go watch those videos, Section 5 is the new world conflict. Basically, it's everything that the inciting incident pushed the character to lead to, and they are finally put into the midpoint conflict. That's Section 5. And then Section 6 of Act 2 would ultimately be trying to find a solution to be capable of fixing what caused the main issue in the midpoint. All right. But we're focusing on Section 4 right now of Act 2. So what does that mean for Section 4? It means you should be challenging what you have set up in Act 1 in a way that shows how your character is capable, is growing, is learning specifically the new world that they are. And they're learning how to navigate in the new world with the new information. And finding out that the new world they have journeyed into is going to be threatened somehow. Okay? Meaning that new world, Section 4, Act 2, where we're entering the Act 2 conflict, right? We want to know how that new world that they're getting used to, that they're finding their stride in, could be challenged, which would be what leads you into your midpoint conflict. So you have to set that up too. You have to set up what they are capable of and then introduce themes or ideas or plot points that will kind of say, hey, what would be the biggest pushback? It's coming. It'll be there. And then it happens. For example, in Meet the Parents, all Act 2, Section 4 is him, Greg, I believe his name is Greg. The character Greg, Ben Stiller's character, trying to do right by the parents of his girlfriend, who he wants to make a fiance, and showing that he's great. and that he's worthy of the daughter's love, and he's worthy of the father giving him permission to marry the daughter, right? And the challenge to that is he worthy, or is he everything they think he is, and why he shouldn't be with the daughter? Which the midpoint conflict is everything falls apart. Greg is found to have been lying. He's the one who actually caused the gazebo to burst into flames. He's the one that, right? So we set up the potential of those themes for section 5. We do that in section 4, while also showing that he is capable, that he has potential, that who he is, and everything that we set up in Act 1 is being completely challenged and showcased through his capable behavior in section 4. Okay. If I was going to give you some examples for movies that you've seen, Jurassic Park, the storm starts up and the electricity goes out. The T-Rex escapes. So the new world is that, how do I put this? All right. So the new world is they get to the island that has the dinosaurs. Okay. And when they see the first dinosaur, they're now in the new world. Okay. And we set up the midpoint conflict by saying that it is safe. The electricity is safe. Everything about this island is controlled. It's all automated. We control the dinosaurs. We control that they can get pregnant because they're all females, but they use frog DNA. So they seed all these things because in the midpoint conflict we start exposing those realities, which is what? Well, the electric didn't hold because there was a faulty process in the system, which was human error or destruction. Therefore, the T-Rex escapes. That's going to be crazy. That's all midpoint, by the way. So the actual T-Rex escaping is midpoint. But you need to set that up in section 4. And you do that by knowing what your midpoint is and saying, all right, if it's going to be the electric goes out and the dinosaurs escape, and also it turns out that the dinosaurs are finding a way to reproduce because they have that frog DNA and they can change their sexes in the wild. Now in section 5, we actually get to see all that unfold. But anyway, so in Batman Begins, the section 5 midpoint is, well, Batman Lee is he discovers the hideout of Dr. Kane. He confronts Kane and he exposes Batman to a hallucinogen powder that nearly drives him insane. So section 4 for Batman Begins is that he discovers that Dr. Kane, that there's a drug in the alleyway or whatever they call it, and the back alleys of Gotham. And when he gets there, he's exposed to this hallucinogen, which is challenging his capabilities. And he discovers that there's something a little bit more dangerous going on, per se, right? And that we need the new world is suggesting we're going to need to be able to fight this hallucinogen, and there's something greater going on. And it turns out, they've been filling the water up with the toxin, right? Yeah, the toxin. So, in a sense, we now have to set that up in section 4. So, section 4 of Batman Begins is what? Well, he's being Batman. He takes down the main bad guy, the main gangster, right? We see him being Batman. He's fighting people. He's helping the DA. He's making a name for himself. But we also set up the Dr. Kane thing. We set up that Dr. Kane works for the mob. We set up early on that he's been saying that people are insane. And then what's he do? He's been sending them to Arkham to study them, but he's really using them as manpower. So everything that happens in section 5, the midpoint, is seated in section 4 so we can challenge that. Okay? All right. let's get into this. A quick aside, think of the Act 2 journey in 3 parts. Like I said, their capability being showcased as they learn the new world. That's this section 4. Section 5, which is after this, is their capability being challenged to the limit. That's the midpoint conflict. And section 6 is going to be trying to find a solution to overcome their limitations to fight back against the results of the midpoint conflict. But we are focused on section 4, which is that they are capable, that they are showcasing themselves and their skills and their talents. Section 4 of Act 2 is all about them learning the ropes of the new world through the new information, through the change, and working through it. As always, we have been using Shawshank Redemption for this. So let's do that. Let's do Shawshank Redemption. All right. I think this is it. Nope, this is it. All right. Boom. Here you go. All right, I'm going to take this out just so you can see it better. All right. Look how nice and clear that is. All right. So section 4 has point 10, point 11, point 12. Point 10 is literally the process of introducing the new world, what has changed, and how does the hero or the protagonist feel about it. Point 11, that plot point is going to be the hero gets to take a break and have a little fun. Basically, this is where we get to learn a little bit more about them, their relationships with people, and sometimes if they're learning magic, this is like where they're learning the magic. This is the whole montage thing, like, I'm going to show you magic. Oh, here's the magic. Point 12, hero, the protagonist compares their current world to how things were at the beginning of the novel. All right. So in Shawshank Redemption, the introduction to the new world is, as they say here, okay, a big turn of events. After Andy is beaten by the sisters, Boggs is beaten by Hadley. Why? Well, Andy has entered the protection of the guards and the warden because he has something to offer. So what's the new world so far? The new world is that Andy came in as an unknown and he was under the tyranny of the warden and the system. But now that Andy has something to offer, a value set of knowledge of how the money system works, how banks work, etc., he did right by the guard and helped him keep, I think, $30,000 that was inherited to him, things like that. They're protecting him. So the new world for Andy is we got your back now. You have value and we acknowledge that. Okay. A subplot into that new world is Andy says he loves chess and would like pieces. He had said that a little earlier before he got thrown into the infirmary. And during this time, it is later explained that Andy, and he also asks for a poster of Rita Hayworth. Well, when he gets out of the infirmary, the poster's there. The chess pieces are there, etc., etc. But we learn in a flashback that he actually wanted the poster because he had pulled out a chunk of wall, and it was nice that that's like kind of seeding that little bit. And then, of course, the rocks are there and the chess pieces, etc., etc. But the main new world is that Andy is now a part of the system and not necessarily against the system as he was in Act 1. He's a part of the system. And he has the protection of that system, which means we get to have fun now. So finally, Andy has some time to breathe. He comes back. He's not dealing with the sisters. And more importantly, he got out of the infirmary. He got his poster, and he's protected by the guards. So we get to see how he learns, how he builds relationships with Red, and how he builds relationships with the other people involved, and that Andy in general during this section of the fun and games is finding his stride. He's really like coming together. He's a part of, he's not stressing out. He's not running and hiding. So we get to see Andy kind of like spread his wings a little bit, which brings us to how he compares the new world and the old world, right? So the warden sizes up Andy. What is the difference between the world he knew and the world he now inhabits? As it says on the screen, he first showed up as a new fish and now has the position in the prison under the protection of the guards. The warden is interested in him, and he has friends who treat him like one of their own. Conclusion: all this is leading to the warden pulling Andy into the criminal world, getting him to the library, and finding a use for him. So, again, the seed to the midpoint conflict is that the warden is pulling him into this world, this new world, and he's going to utilize Andy in a way that makes him a tool in the corrupt reality of everything. So that's pretty interesting. All right, stop sharing. Boop, 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 boop. You got to stop sharing. Okay, that brings us to what should go in Act 2, Section 4. So while you're writing, think of Section 4 as a breakdown into 3 plot points. Remember, plot point 10, plot point 11, plot point 12. So what should go in Act 2, Section 4? Well, in plot point 10, this is the introduction, like I said. So set up the rules of the new world compared to the ordinary world they knew. Let them learn something about the new world and themselves. So basically, in plot point 10, the introduction to the new world, you have to set up the new rules. So again, if Act 1, a character doesn't know magic, but the promise is that there is magic in the world, and that he's being sent away to the wizarding school of Hogsworth. Well, in Act 2, Section 4, we see the magic. So we now have to establish magic. We have to establish that how it's used. All right, how is it used? Well, that's easy. Wands. There are teachers, there are students. There are first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, right? So there's different year students. There's also the name that shall not be spoken, right? We introduced that in this because that's the new world, right? The Voldemort. I don't know if I was supposed to say that. Is in that world. Okay. Now, Section 4.11. This is where we have a little bit of fun. Okay. This is usually where characters build relationships, get sidetracked from the main plot a little bit, or grow as a person. Characters understand the world they were introduced to, such as experimenting with new technology or getting to know someone on dates. All right. This is the training montage, learns a new skill, they visit someone. In Avengers 2, Section 4 was ultimately where they went to the farm. So, the inciting incident of Act 1 was that Ultron was made. Well, actually, the inciting incident of Act 1 would be that Tony says, let me experiment on the Soul Stone, whatever stone it is. I think it's the Soul Stone. No, it's the whatever, Power Stone. Is it the Power? It's the yellow one. Whatever. He's like, I want to experiment on the Soul. Yeah, it's not the Soul Stone because they have to go to the planet to get that. In Age of Ultron, Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, the inciting incident is when Tony Stark says, I would like to experiment on the stone, the Infinity Stone, because it almost seems like it has. Oh, it's the Mind Stone, because it almost seems like it's thinking, and the direct consequence to that is Ultron is created, comes out, he fights the Avengers, beats them, takes off and flies, goes into the internet, and everyone's like, son of a bitch. So Act 2 is them retreating to regroup, all right, because they have to, and they get to the farm. While they're at the farm, that's the new world, is that they're dealing with Ultron taking over the internet. He's doing something crazy. They're trying to figure out what the plan might be. But at this time, Section 4, plot point 11 for the Avengers on the farm is what? Well, Thor goes off and he has to go to the pool, and like he goes in that cave, and right, he's doing that. We're learning a little bit about Clint and his family, and that Clint is the normal one, but he's the heart of the team and he keeps them together. We're learning that what's his face shows up. Nick Fury, he shows up, right, and they have a little conversation about that stuff. We have the moment where uh, Black Widow, Natalie, Black Widow, and Hulk, they're going over their relationship. Can they or can't they? So we're getting to learn a little bit more about them in point 11. Okay, section 4 point plot point 12 is when the new world is compared to the old world. And this is before characters head off into the main conflict. They will compare their current world to how things were at the beginning. Not that there is a conversation about it. The story, it's not like they say, I remember when. It's more like the story needs a showcase. Because remember, show don't tell. They need to showcase the major differences. Basically, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, right? So this is where you want to let the story you want to show in your story, let it show the difference between where they came from and where they are and are going or heading. This also will fuel or seed the push into section 5 for the midpoint conflict. Another example for this plot beat might be Rose's mother shows up while she and Jack are hanging out on the decks. Her mother's disdain for Jack is palpable, right? But later, Jack goes to their fancy dinner party and, much to Cal's dismay, charms everyone at the table. Afterwards, Lovejoy follows Rose to Jack's party and reports his findings to Cal, right? So there's some challenge. That little bit of challenge pushes off into everything that section 5 is about. But we're also seeing we're comparing the new world with the old world, which is Jack comes from a poor, earlier when we saw the new world, we got to see it through Jack's eyes where he's like partying on the, he's getting to see the Titanic, but he's, on the lower decks, and then you get to see Rose and she's on the upper deck. So you're getting to see the two new worlds on the Titanic, and then that little like comparing the differences, they actually kind of go into each other's world a little bit. She comes down and dances, right? So anyway, all right. An example of all 3 plot points influencing a story through section 4 of Act 2 might look like an alien after Kane closes in on one of the alien eggs and it breaks out of the egg and hits him in the face. He is knocked out, right? So how do we look at that? So section 4.10 is the introduction to the new world. What does this look like? The team explores a new planet. All right. They find a ship and the egg nest where Kane gets hit in the face happens. Right. Okay. So now we're in the take a break. So while Kane is in the medical bay, they learn the aliens have acid blood. They head back into space. Now that's all taking a break because now it's more informative. They're exploring what they learned in the new world, and now they're learning a little bit about themselves within that situation. They're learning about the aliens. So learning about the aliens is the same as learning the magic or, learning a new fighting technique or whatever. Okay. Now, section 4, plot 12 in Alien is comparing the old world to the new. And this is when Kane wakes up and is literally eating. And the alien busts out, hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello. And then check, please. Right. So that's what happens. All right. Final thoughts. There's a lot you can get out of this section of your story. So Act 2, Section 4 has a lot of potential for growth in story. In fact, most often you hear there's a lull in Act 2 because we don't know what to do. Well, this gives you direction. If you know that Section 4, plot point 10 is about setting up the new world and letting us see how capable the character is in that new world, then work to do that. And then we know that if Section 4 plot point 11 is that we get to take a break, and this is more intimate. We get to see them working on something, learning about each other, discovering a skill. You know that you have to put time into that beat, that plot point. And then again, section 4 plot point 12 you want to ultimately say to yourself, what is different now compared to where they were at the beginning of the story? All right. So that's why there's a lot you can get out of this section. The first act in total is introducing the information to your audience, the world, themes, characters, and their motivations, right? That's what Act 1 is about. Act 1 is here's introducing information, the world, themes, promises, motivations, characters. Now, in this section of your second act, leading to the midpoint, gives you a chance to challenge that information. That's the other aspect of how to make this interesting. Everything you set up in Act 1, now you get the challenge while going up to the conflict, right? If you can challenge that information in a way that allows you to introduce more depth to the world, you'll get more out of it. Oh, God. I needed that. All right. Think of this section as a chance to say, again, if in Act 1 magic exists, then in Act 2, Section 4, now what can we do with magic and how far is the potential to push that magic? But don't push it to its full potential. Save that for the third act. Okay. Now, how does the act set up everything? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight to that, okay? But I am going to focus on Act 2 when I explain this in my final thoughts. But I'm going to give you a little, like one sentence insight for each kind of thing. So to sum up Act 1, this sets up who they are and what they are capable of. Section 4 of Act 2 takes what was set up and challenges it to see it in action. Section 5 of Act 2 pushes what we've witnessed to their limits, the limits they are not ready for. So again, if it's magic they're learning, but the spell that could save them, they didn't master yet, and they use it, and it hurts them. But they get out of the situation, but not how they wanted to. There was a bad consequence. Well, whatever the case may be, Section 5 of Act 2 pushes what we've witnessed them deal with in their limitations, right? And now that leads us to Section 6 of Act 2, which gives the character a chance to deal with the fallout of the midpoint to find a solution, saying, I wasn't strong enough. How do I get strong enough? Basically, right? Which brings us to summing up Act 3, which is bring a resolution to the story by allowing characters to find the inside power and push through to victory. Real quick things you should think about. Think about these aspects of your story to place seeds from the beginning of Act 1 through Act 2, Section 4, the ascending rise to conflict. Okay, fuel what's to come subtextually, and you want to know where you are going so you can add real value to where they are and what they are going through for that ultimately to pay off in the midpoint conflict. So what am I saying? Whatever you set up in Act 1, think about how you can challenge that in Act 2, Section 4. If you are working on Act 2, Section 4, and you start discovering your story and things that are interesting and intriguing, and you like where the characters are taking you or where the story is taking you, you're allowed to go back to Act 1 and seed that payoff by going, all right, we got to set that up, because Act 1 is all about setup. Act 2 will be about challenging that. Okay. Anyway. All right. So the next video in the series will focus on Act 2, Section 5, which is the crisis of New World, the midpoint conflict. This is the before, during, and after of the midpoint conflict of your story. We'll go into that in a little depth. Question: what's your favorite part of the writing process that really motivates you to write your stories? Let me know in the comments below. And, if you want to learn a little bit more about improving your craft, insight on the industry, and hearing from fellow authors through our podcast show, please subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out. All right, I guess that's it. All right. As always, keep developing. I don't know. Are you ready? As always, keep developing the right mindset.